this is another best practice to keep in mind while you're doing LTL or FTL, right? I mean, we all know, right? I mean, LTL is less than truckload and FTL is full truckload. And full truckload, it's always point A to point B. You load the truck to the fullest and then close it, lock it, seal it, and then boom, it's gone, right? And obviously, right, do the loading process carefully and do anything else. If you need to put in air pillows, do the air pillows. If you have to put in the tie bars, do the tie bars, load bars, cargo bars, whatever, however you guys call it. And then also, if it makes sense to, apply the strap, do that, right? So that is all, pretty standard for FTL, and you do that and you lock it and then seal it, take the picture of the seal, take the picture of the, like how well you did before closing the door, and upload them to LoadProof. So whoever asks any question, you can immediately show them, hey, this is the condition of the product when it left our facility. So you can prove you did your job right. So that's FTL, right? Relatively simple. So on the LTL side, so less than truckload, what happens is, right, it's less than truckload. So usually what happens in the LTL scenario is, you're loading, last in, first out, right? So you're loading in a reverse stop sequence. So if you are making 10 stops in a town, the last stop, goes first. That means it's all the way in the deep end of the trailer, and then the next one. The first one is kept at the front. So what happens? So the driver goes to the first stop, drops off the first set of pallets, and then goes to the second stop, drops off the second. It's not always clean, right? I mean, they're going to maximize this cube, and they're going to load it as tightly as they can to to reduce the number of trips they need to do. So while doing that, right, you have to realize that there is way too much handling that's happening to all these LTL pallets. So it's important to understand that, right? Recognize the fact that, hey, there is way too much handling happening. So if you're applying some kind of a shrink wrapping, the shrink wrapping needs to be pretty tight and a higher quality compared to a if you're doing shrink wrapping for a FTL, right? Because too much handling is happening. And also, depending on the weight, your gauge of the shrink wrapping that you're using, right? The sheet, the PVC or whatever plastic sheet that you're using, the gauge also has to, the gauge is the thickness of the sheet. So that needs to be able to handle the weight of the product that you're transporting, right? That's very important. So if you're transporting a really heavy product, then you have to shrink wrap it with a 100 gauge or plus, because that's the one that can handle the most weight. And if it's a less weight product, then you can go with the 65-75 gauge thickness. So that's very important to keep in mind, right? If it's LTL, it's a lot more handling. So you got to recognize that, hey, it's a lot more handling. Think through that and pack it appropriately, pack it and load it appropriately, right? Whatever straps or whatever you guys might use. So recognize the fact that LTLs require more handling. Sometimes the truck driver may have to, he went to the second stop or third stop and he has to move some pallets to get the pallet out. I mean, even though however efficiently they do it, I've seen many times, right? Many times I've been to these DCs and these guys, either they dropped it off or they're, they just got, pallets loaded onto their truck. They'll be parked in a corner of the DC campus and they'll be like, sorting things and, adjusting things and covering things up and things like that. So that way they make sure, hey, all right, sometimes these drivers don't even have access to the dock. I mean, in the FTL scenario, they cannot even see what is loaded. So they just go pull it to the dock door and then everybody loads the pallet. And then, I mean, the container is loaded by the shipper. They ship, they load everything, and then they close the door and they take pictures. So the driver doesn't even have visibility to it. All he has to do is drive and go to the destination and then drop off. That's it. But in the LTL scenario, right, they make multiple stops and then they deliver. Sometimes after the delivery, they stop in the corner of the campus within the yard area, and then they adjust things. They take pictures and they make sure, right, for the rest of the distance wherever they need to go, everything is going to hold up pretty well, right? Nothing is going to fall off. Nothing is going to shake and get scratches and things like that. So that's something that's very important to keep in mind, that if you're shipping LTL, you got to be a lot more careful, and a lot more packing is needed, because a lot more handling happens, a lot more it's vulnerable to damages, or a lot more things happening, right? A lot more action. Whereas in FTL, it's point A to point B, nobody's touching in the middle, unless your trailer gets stolen, and that happens too. We've heard some crazy stories where there was this a trailer full of car batteries that was shipped, and somehow it just disappeared. And then later they found the trailer, half of the batteries were missing. So that happens as well. So in a normal scenario, that's an exception, obviously. So in a normal scenario, that won't happen. So that's something to keep in mind, right? If it's LTL, recognize the fact that it needs more handling, so even more shrink wrapping. So and apply the take into account the weight of the product that they're shipping, and make sure apply the right shrink wrapping. Make sure the gauge of the shrink wrapping material can handle the weight of the product that you're transporting, right? So yeah, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please share this with your friends and coworkers, and like this video, add any comments, and let us know if there is anything else that we can do for you. And thank you for your time.